Hello everyone, welcome back to My Hero Academia Podfic. Today I'll be starting part 1 of the series, Izuku Against the Teachers. This is a really great series. I like it a lot. It's a lot of heavy angst and Izuku kind of snapping when he's finally fed up with things that Bakugo is doing. So I hope you guys enjoy. 1. Midoriya Against the Teachers. Izuku was tired, not just exhausted, not just running low on energy, but tired. Not the low you reach after expending all of your faculties, not the place you drop to after every muscle feels like the strain of overexertion. Bone, dead, tired. Because of him. Because of his whole life. Bakugo fucking Katsuki. Izuku tapped his pencil against the side of his leg, while the boy he once called friend screamed in his face. No one seemed keen on stepping between them. Even Aizawa was pointedly not looking their way. Why? Why wouldn't he just step in? Why did no one ever help? Unless he's right. Maybe they agree with everything he's saying. Hey, are you ignoring me, you fucking weasel? The pencil in his hand snapped, one end remaining in his hand while the other flew past Bakugo's head and smacked against the wall. Can you shut the fuck up? He growled. At that, suddenly everyone was looking. Bakugo did shut up, his face portraying a look that said Izuku's words hadn't computed. The hell did you just say to me, you fucking dumbass? Bakugo hissed, taking a step forward. A tiny explosion tipped off his fingertips, and suddenly Aizawa was standing, capture tape at the ready. Enough. Everyone in your seats, he snapped, although the words were clearly only meant for one student. Midoriya settled neatly at his desk and did so without so much as glancing at anyone. Not Aizawa, who was now staring at him as though Izuku had announced himself as a drag queen and done the hula. Not Bakugo, who sat down but pointedly kicked his seat back to jostle his desk. Not his friends who tried to catch his attention, not his classmates who whispered words of concern. Sunshine Child, he snapped. I don't think I've ever seen him angry. What the hell was that? He actually managed to shut him up. That wasn't a manly thing to say, though. Oh, and Bakugo was being manly, I take it? That's different. Their words were all meaningless chatter. Inside, Izuku was lost. Midoriya, see me after class, Aizawa called. Izuku stiffened in his seat, all chatter ceased, then picked up much louder, but he didn't hear it. All he could hear was the voice echoing inside of his skull, right alongside the voice of every past teacher. You shoved Bakugo during recess, didn't you, Midoriya? We heard you shouted at Bakugo today, brat. Midoriya, you can't keep getting into fights like this. See me after class. Izuku slumped back in his chair, ignoring the smug, all-knowing snort from Bakugo. He had been so careful since getting into UA, had never raised his voice at Kachan or pushed back. Teachers loved him. They would never tolerate back talk from someone like him. Problem child then and problem child now, he thought to himself chillingly. Risking a glance at the front of the room, he didn't dare look at his teacher, just checked the wall and fixed his gaze back on his desk immediately after. Aizawa was a teacher just like the rest, and Bakugo was still a god among them all. Izuku closed his eyes. He really was tired. The moment class ended, he got up from his seat and followed Aizawa out of the room. Behind him, the classroom exploded with noise that he desperately wanted to listen to and yet was grateful to be away from. Follow me. We'll talk in the lounge, Aizawa said, glaring at the door. Privacy to chew him out thoroughly. Well, maybe he'll just expel you right off the bat. If he's lucky, it'll be detention. This is Aizawa, after all. The lounge was void of anyone else. Izuku wasn't sure if he were glad for that or not. No witnesses, no interruptions, no backup. Just like primary, just like always. Midoriya against the world, against his teachers, against this tall man who sat down and gestured for Izuku to do the same. I don't appreciate fighting in my classroom, he started. Bakugo always shouts. I have no control over him. It was true. This time was no different. I don't like cussing either. You disrupted the whole class. Was he really? Confusion faded to rage. Rage faded to sadness. All at once the tiredness was back. And this time he spoke before he could get it under control. You mean when he called me a dumbass? Or when he said I should, and I quote, fucking drop out since I'm good for absolutely nothing? Sorry, I hadn't realized we were drawing the line at me telling him to be quiet. It was the first time in his whole life he ever talked back, and it was to the scariest teacher in existence. Red eyes turned sharp, his quirk disappearing even though he wasn't using it. They faded to black fast, and he was grateful for it. The irritation stuck around, though. Bakugo's vocabulary has room for it. I'm not certain he even knows which words express feelings. You, on the other hand, should know better. You could have handled that much better. Double standards, right. He'd almost forgotten about those in his time at UA. Just don't engage with him. So just because he doesn't want to see a therapist, he can get away with verbally abusing me on a daily basis, but I'm not allowed to defend myself. Got it. Was that all you wanted? He moved to get up, but found his arms strapped to his side in layers of binding cloth. Well, now he's done it. I don't know what's gotten into you today, but watch it. And if Bakugo is bothering you, then there's no reason to defend yourself. Just tell a teacher. Tell me. Trust the adults to handle it. Trust? Trust? After he watched and did nothing today, despite being bound up tight, he rocked forward in his chair to look Aizawa in the eyes. Quite frankly, I know you don't want to step in, nor do I think you would. We both know you heard what he was saying to me in there, and you did nothing, he stated, guilt gnawing at his insides for daring to speak in such a disrespectful way. It's good for him to get out of his system on someone who can take it. He's much calmer throughout the day afterwards. Hadn't you realized? Aizawa asked. On someone who can take it. What a beautiful way of putting it. Izuku could take it. He was strong. Kachan couldn't hurt him anymore. Better him than someone else. Kirishima would be so upset if his precious Baku bro shouted at him like that. With all due respect, can we just skip all of this and get to the part where you either tell me never to let it happen again or suspend me or even expel me? He snapped, struggling to try and free his arms at the very least. You're not in trouble. I just wanted to talk and make sure I don't snap at Golden Boy again. I got it, he hissed. I won't let it happen again, sir. There was a moment where he was sure his teacher would say something, mouth open and everything, but he then released Izuku, and he wasted no time bowing apologetically and fleeing the room. Rather than go back to class, he went to the bathroom. He was late anyways. Present Mike couldn't be more disappointed. But then he was actually in the bathroom, alone, upset, and tired. Izuku sat down in the stall and pulled his feet up onto the toilet. Just for a few moments, he needed to rest. 2. Midoriya losing all trust. He felt sick. A bad day turned into a bad week. Bakugo was downright sinister during class, worse when paired with or against Izuku. To say All Might was confused was an understatement. As usual, they made some progress. Whereas most would recognize the need for space, his teachers assumed they had to force it. More time together, spar together, why don't you two make dinner together? Hey Izuku, share your notes with him, etc., etc., etc. It made him sick. So sick. Didn't they see? Didn't they get it? Bakugo wasn't his friend. They would never be friends. Izuku didn't want to be his friend. Or maybe they didn't see that. Maybe they didn't want to. Well, fine, he'd make them see. Young Midoriya, sparring with young Bakugo. Actually, I've sparred with him 4 times today already and beat him 3 out of 4. I'd rather spar with someone else now and learn something new. It wasn't said bitingly or even angrily. He remained as cheery as ever. So then, why was everyone suddenly looking at him as he'd requested to be bound by masking tape and tossed into an active volcano? Well, All Might started. A distressed look on his face. Fortunately for him, he didn't get to finish that thought because the resident Explodo boy jumped in. You think you're better than me? Let's go again. I'll fucking destroy you, Deku. How unoriginal, he found himself thinking. No thanks. Literally anyone else want to trade me? Kirishima, you're his friend. You don't mind, right? Kirishima froze, glancing around nervously. Well, you're his friend too, Mito bro. One more time isn't bad, right? Kami above, no thanks. Did no one know what a hint was anymore? Really, no. All Might? Their foundational heroics teacher faltered and then pulled himself together. Well then, I suppose you two can switch. See me after class, young Midoriya. Every muscle in his body locked up. It took being shoved away by Bakugo to set him back on his path toward his new sparring partner. Sue. See me after class. All Might wouldn't be like that, would he? Behind him, Bakugo cackled, and even though he was pale as sweaty and suddenly so sick, Izuku found the strength to make it through the class. Almost everyone was dragging their feet except for Kirishima, who was actively trying to pull Bakugo away. A confrontation like that had left him bitter and angry and very much in the mood to hit something. Well, in the mood to hit Izuku. Actually, that was one of his only moods. Hold on, I'd like to talk to you too, Bakugo. Everyone spun to look at the blonde, who frowned deeply. Go on, everyone give us some privacy, please. Why would he want to talk to Bakugo? Izuku was thrown for a loop, completely wrong-footed, so out of his depth that he barely registered standing before his hero and listening to him ask if everything was okay. Everything would be fine if Deku wasn't a fucking coward. Oh, that drew him back to the present. How is it cowardly? Are you admitting that you purposely try to scare me? All Might gasped. If you can't take it, I can't take you. I mean, you are such an asshole to me for absolutely no reason. You're such a crybaby. You don't even see shitty hair freaking out half this much. Right, because obviously their treatment was on the same level. Boys, surely you can find a way to work this out peacefully and return to being friends, All Might insisted. I'm not his friend, he said sharply. I'm not his friend. I'm not his rival. We are nothing. Just ignore me, because that's what I plan on doing to you, he said calmly, as he could, turning to face Bakugo towards the end. His words did not inspire calmness. What? I thought you two were friends since babies. Izuku froze at several classmates popping up in the gym, having clearly eavesdropped. Then, when Jiro's words registered, he threw his head back and laughed. Friends! More laughing. This time he grasped his side tightly when a twinge went through it. You thought we were friends? That's, oh man. Why on earth did you think that? Dude, don't be like that, Kirishima said quietly. He was the picture of uncomfortable. Even Bakugo looked shocked. Be like what? I'm sorry. It's just, wow, you know? I mean, you do realize he called me a fucking coward less than a minute ago, right? Finally pulling himself together, he wiped real tears off his face. I'm not his friend. We will never be friends after all that he's done to me. And with that he left. Whatever All Might wanted to say could wait until after his classmates learned the meaning of privacy. And if the feeling of sickness returned the moment that he was out the door, well, no one had to know he threw up in the bushes. 3. Midoriya alone in his head. It was over the weekend, and Izuku felt restless. Restlessness always led to messing up, in his experience. He'd wind himself up to the point of snapping, and in his not-so-limited experience, snapping usually left him broken, literally. So he went to the gym. He figured he could run some laps, work on his stamina, and exhaust himself past the point of his anxious buildup of energy. If he could tire himself out to the point of falling asleep easily, that'd be great too. Anything at this point to soothe his rampant, dreamless nights. It was a stellar idea. For one, most of the class was in the dorms. For two, the gym was empty. The first 20 minutes were blissful, noiseless exercise that made his muscles buzz. Deku. Then he showed up. Kacha, what are you two doing here? He squeaked, whirling around to find Bakugo stomping towards him. Get lost. I'm training with Kirishima today. Izuku looked around the wide, spacious gym, the empty machines, and frowned. Go ahead. I'm just going to keep jogging, he said, and with a bright smile, brightest that he could muster, he turned to continue his laps around the gym's perimeter. But a hand caught him on his arm, and he winced at the instant burn. Go do it somewhere else, Bakugo pressed, looking downright feral. I don't want to see your shitty face. Then don't look, Izuku snapped, jerking his arm free. Once more he tried to jog off, but was hit by a force in the back of his head that propelled him forward. Toppled over, he rolled to try and shout at the absolute ass, only to be met with heat. It wasn't a major explosion, just an attempt to burn off the excess sweat. Likely, but it hurt. His eyes burned, his face burned, breathing hurt. The weight on him that he hadn't even felt was gone now, but he stayed down, curling onto his side and whimpering. Recovery Girl was going to yell at him. All he wanted was to get a decent night's sleep, not get near blinded. I said get lost. When denied something, Bakugo was quite resourceful in finding a way to get it. Shitty Deku doesn't want to leave the gym, burn his face so that he's forced to run to get help. Except Izuku was done being forced. He was done having his chances and options and choices ripped away. With considerable strain, he willed himself to his knees, rolled back onto his feet, and turned away from Bakugo. Away from the exit. He took a shaky step, shook himself, and then started into a slow jog around the room. It wasn't easy by any means. His eyesight seemed clouded, and every breath hurt, even when through his mouth instead of his nose. What the fuck do you think you're doing? Scram! No, he wanted to shout back, but just kept running. They didn't want him to engage. He wouldn't engage. They didn't want him to defend himself. He wouldn't raise a finger. They didn't want to help him. He wouldn't go to them for help. Not immediately, at least. He made it one more lap before Kirishima came in. The boy took one look at him and screamed. Will you shut up? Bakugo snapped from halfway across the gym. What happened to your face? That looks bad, dude, like really bad. Come on, I'll take you to Recovery Girl, Kirishima said, grabbing Izuku's arm. Hey, we're training, remember? Bakugo started towards them, but then stopped. Izuku couldn't tell, but it looked like Kirishima was glaring at him. We'll train when I get back. I don't think Midoriya can even see right now. Had he ever heard the redhead sound so tense? It's fine, he muttered, breaking away. I know the way to her office. I could get there in my sleep if I needed to. He has no intention of going to her. Not yet, anyways. Nah, man, it wouldn't be very heroic if I let you go alone. What even happened? You look awful. Bakugo snorted, and it was the last he heard from him as they went to the exit. Oh, Bakugo blasted me in the face with his quirk. It really looks that bad. Honestly, I thought he just singed my eyebrows. Kami, if Bakugo burned his eyebrows off, all bets are off. He'd destroy it, smash him into the sun. Bakugo did what? Suddenly, Izuku was being led much faster by a marching Kirishima. He had no clue where they were going, but he recognized a man on a mission when he saw one, or vaguely saw the vague outline of one. One thing he knew is that they were not going to Recovery Girl. His feet had stomped and dragged and been carried, and that was way enough times to know which way led to the nurse and which ways did not. Kirishima stopped and knocked loudly on a door. The familiar, tired grumbling on the other side made his insides cold. I'm going to see Recovery Girl, he stated. Turning away, Kirishima wrapped an arm around him and hardened it. Smart, considering he immediately tried to elbow him getting away. What? Aizawa growled as he opened the door. There was a small huff, a gasp maybe, from the man. Not loud enough to calm him or distract him from his escape plans. He was not going to ask for help. He was not going to play a game designed for him to lose. Bakugo attacked Midoriya. He can't see. Something closed around his shoulder, and he was faced with a tall shadow. Oh, that was Aizawa's chest. He looked up, and thanks to the stark contrast of pale skin and dark hair, he could make out more of his teacher's features than Kirishima's. What did he do to you? His teacher whispered, and the horror in those words caught him off guard. Just a friendly little disagreement, he spat. Really helped him take the edge off. I'm sure he'll be more chill now. The choked-up grunt that followed was full of pain. On any other day, for any other occasion, he'd feel bad for the slight dig. However, he wasn't going to sit here and accept any more excuses for Bakugo's behavior. Kirishima, you can go now. A hand much bigger than Kirishima's came down at his back, and he flinched. What about... Go. I'll take Midoriya to the nurse's office. His tone did not allow for argument or delay, and Izuku registered the sound in sight of the redhead retreating, which left him all alone with an insanely pissed-off man. Restless and terrified, he chanced another look up. Fucking problem child. That tone was too similar to his own on days where he'd just had it, hit the ends of his rope. Sensei was so tired of him. I'm good, you don't have to take me anywhere, he quickly stated, trying to move away from the hand guiding his back. It fisted in his shirt, and he slumped forward, defeated. You'll be lucky if you aren't scarred horribly. Well, ouch. It wouldn't be the first scar he's given me, it's not like it matters. Honestly, it probably wouldn't be in the top worst of 5 scars from him. His shoulder, back, chest were the worst. Not the first. Why didn't you tell me? Izuku recoiled, but was held in place by Aizawa's hold on his shirt. Someone hurts you, you tell me, understand? You tell me. It was too much like middle school, hands bunched in his jacket, shaking him violently, shouting so much shouting. Stop. He was realizing what he was trying to say. He let go for a moment. Izuku took a shuddering breath that didn't feel great on his burnt lips. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have yelled like that. Come on, those burns need to be cleaned and treated. Though he made his voice more gentle, it did nothing to comfort him. If anything, Izuku was only more on guard. Talking down, being so kind and considerate, just wasn't in this man's nature when it came to students. So either he was planning another logical ruse, or he was just playing being manipulative. It's okay. Teachers yell all the time. Besides, I cause a lot of problems. I'm fine on my own, really. He insisted, willing Aizawa to understand, to leave him alone. Carefully, as slow as possible, he backed away. I'll just go by myself. Can't let you do that. The end of the capture weapon wrapped around him, and he gave one futile jerk back before it being restrained. I'm stepping in, kid. I'm stepping in and putting a stop to this behavior towards you. That was unexpected. And you and I are going to have a chat. Izuku promptly choked on spit and airs and sadness. 4. The teachers against Izuku's world. No lasting damage to his eyes. Honestly, that's all he could really be thankful for. While he would have a minor scar along the side of his face, he wouldn't be visibly impaired. Small mercies, he supposed. Why then did he feel so tense? How many times has he hurt you with his quirk? Aizawa asked him. This would be the 4th time he's asked since Recovery Girl told him the good news. This year or in general, he shot back, chest so tight that he felt like he might burst. Each time he asked, Izuku had either outright lied or brushed him off. Just because he thought that Bakugo had gone overboard today doesn't mean that he's going to suddenly enact over 10 years' worth of vengeance for a student he doesn't even like. Let's go with this year. his teacher growled. Recovery Girl tapped his leg with her cane as he stepped back and let her pass. Do you want the times that people were present, or just the ones no one bothered to ask about? It was stupid, arguing with the man. Aizawa was his teacher, a hero, and a man he respected and looked up to, even if he was incredibly angry with everything at the moment. Both. So dull. Not once had he risen to the bait. Honestly, the only thing keeping him sane at the moment was the promise of something interesting about to happen. Recovery Girl exited the office, and he watched the door close. At Aizawa's small grunt, his attention pulled back around 14 times, each marked and catalogued in the scars on his skin, carefully set on display for eternity both inside and out of his soul. 14, Aizawa breathed. The worst? He didn't sound like he wanted the answer. Izuku could lie again, downplay the seriousness of the scars and the words and the never-ending scorn. I can see you trying to come up with a lie. I want the truth. Has he become so transparent? Was he ever that good at lying, or did the teachers just accept his excuses and send him on his way? Had they taught him to lie in the first place? Waving that thought away before he could reflect on it, he met his teacher's gaze head-on. The worst was breaking my nose with an explosion-powered punch. To be fair, that one was bad. Bakugo didn't usually break stuff. I said the truth, he snapped. Well, it was worth a try. Izuku frowned and pulled his shirt aside to show his shoulder. The scar from middle school was still there, hidden under a worse scar, this one red and shiny and new. Bakugo always did like reaffirming old wounds. Oh, Aizawa choked out. His fingers went to hover over it. Izuku leaned away, not all keen at fingers brushing over hot skin. It wasn't fast enough to be a flinch, and he was far too calculated for it to be an accident. Aizawa pulled away immediately. Can I just ask? He stopped himself, and Izuku frowned. It was unusual for the stoic man to be so uncertain. Yes, so long as he didn't ask it something dangerous. How long? Well, everyone already knew the answer to that one, so he saw no harm in answering. Since we were 4. The first time he used his quirk on me wasn't until our last day of elementary, though. Whatever hope the man had wilted in seconds. How many people know? That one was difficult. Everyone, except for anyone, it felt like. His past teachers knew, and his old classmates had to. Surely his mother knew, even if she had never said anything. All Might knew, too. No one in our class, he settled on. It was vague enough, if a bit false. Ida would never stand for quirks being used outside of a safe, facilitated reason or lesson. And Uraraka didn't like Bakugo in the first place, but they all saw the way he was treated. Just because they'd never stepped in when it was words with Kachan, beat him over the head when didn't mean they idly let him act villainous, or he hoped anyway. Who does know? Aizawa reiterated. Just some people from our old school, I guess, and everyone who's seen it firsthand during All Might's class. The majority of his attacks came right after or just before their paired lessons. All Might knows? For how long? Maybe that wasn't the right thing to say. It's not like he's technically broken the rules, except maybe once or twice, like that first time with the fake bombs, but that was different. He was angry, just like today. Angry, angry, angry. That bitter hate will eat you up inside, Kachan, he thought, privately to himself with a frown. You don't consider permanently scarring a classmate against the rules or attacking after the fight has been called off? Well, when you say it in a condescending tone like that, no one stopped him. If it's against the rules, why would everyone let him do it and tell me to go along with it? You told me to go along with it, he doesn't say, but it's a close thing that had him snapping his mouth shut so hard that his teeth clattered together. With the bickering, you can't think... Aizawa studies him a bit. Do you think I'd ever sanction acts of extreme aggression? Didn't you, he thinks. You said it made him better. His tone isn't quite accusatory, but clearly that's how Aizawa takes it. Just the shouting and cursing, the same things that you said you were used to. Well, one of them clearly doesn't mind pointing fingers. I would rather be burned daily, hourly even, than be forced through another one of his stupid derogatory spiels about how I'm a lesser human than he is, that I'm not even on the same level as the dirt he walks on. Kid, every single day, do you know what that's like? To be told by someone who was your best friend that you should just die because your quirk is taking too long to show up? That because you're quirkless that you don't deserve kindness or friendship? To be told to just... No. Panting, Izuku covers his mouth and face just in time to see the shocked expression on Aizawa's face and keep that small piece of information to himself. It takes him a minute to calm down, and he's given total silence to do so. Granted, Aizawa's always quiet, even when surprised by a screaming, shaking student. The tension in his chest increases all the while. I'm sorry. The word's taken by surprise. I made a mistake, an error in my judgment of both you and Bakugo. What the understatement of the century, and this is coming from the boy who's met All Might and heard all of the #1 heroes. I'm just a bit weak today, my boy, and I'm not great at teaching. An error in judgment can't begin to cover it. You saw a guy with a strong quirk treating someone with no control over their quirk like trash, and you let it happen. You willed it to, because it was me, and then at least everyone else was safe. Why is it always me getting hurt to keep them safe? He did not mean that in regard to his many, many run-ins with the villains, but a second later he realized that's exactly how it sounded. Aizawa's dry, red eyes widened. Not that I regret any of that. I'd do it all over again if I had to keep them all safe. Despite the tension, his teacher lets out a quiet snort at that. You would sooner face Shigaraki than Bakugo. At his silence, Aizawa froze. Kid? He shrugged. Midoriya, he snapped, and there was real fear in his eyes. Shigaraki has never once hurt me in the same way that Bakugo has. Plus, I'm allowed to punch a villain, even if they come after me. Not Bakugo. No fighting back. Don't talk back. Let him do whatever he wants, Izuku. Not today. Not anymore. What? Bending impossibly tight. The pressure in his chest needs somewhere to go, but it's trapped in a compressed space. Any more of this and he feels like he might just combust on the spot. Was it rage? No, too calm to be rage. Fear? He didn't feel particularly scared, though. It must have been both. You mean to tell me that Bakugo burned you? Has multiple times, and you don't even fight back? Don't say it like that, as if you expected better. I tried to stop it and almost got in trouble, he thinks. Outside, he was a statue. Inside, Izuku was angry and scared and indignant. I asked him to stop, in class. See how well that went? When you pulled me away, he wanted to hiss. When you told me not to engage with him. I'm not talking about your little spats. There is a much bigger issue here. Bakugo has been violently assaulting you. The final blow, as it were, and just enough to hit that pressure in his chest, and it finally snaps. Can't you see the problem with that? He screamed, letting out all the built-up pressure in his heart. I don't care that he burned me. I don't care that he hits me. Everyone hits me at some point. That doesn't even hurt anymore. What hurts is when everyone listens, when he repeatedly tells me that I mean nothing to anyone, to them, and no one tells him that he is wrong. He tells them that they don't care about me, that I have no place among them, and no one even tries to deny it. No one. They all just sit silently, and they stand there. They all agree. No. Midoriya, look at me. His eyes stay resolutely on the floor, on the spot that they fell to mid-rant. Midoriya! Jerking upright, his eyes meet dark ones, and in them he found so much pain. They do not agree with him. Had he heard that part? Nobody says he's wrong. No one. I'm useless. They all think so. Or maybe he's not useless, but creepy, or too much. They're all tired of him. Don't put words in their mouths. Why shouldn't he, when it's them who've put thoughts in his head? I'm not. That's their own job, and everyone failed. They didn't say anything, Sensei. You didn't stop him from hurting me. You wanted him to hurt me. And with that, the last of his pain should have been expelled. Some part of him does feel lighter, but there's still something. His teacher, on the other hand, looks much worse off. I thought you were friends. Izuku threw his head back and laughed. Everyone does. What gave that away? Was it when he calls me Deku? Was it the way he laughs every time I get in trouble? Or was it the way he told me to jump off the roof of a building? Oh, that's what it was. Finally, he can breathe again. No, Aizawa choked. Don't you dare joke about something like that. I don't expect you to believe me, he snapped. I mean, he's always going to be the perfect hero, right? That's what everyone always said in middle school. There's no way he pushed you, Izuku. He's going to be a hero. Man up, Deku. A hero like Bakugo needs to practice his quirk somehow. Don't be such a baby, Midoriya. I'm trying to heal other students. Detention, Midoriya. How dare you stop Bakugo from mutilating you? The list goes on, it goes on, so long that there are notebooks hidden away between his sheet and a mattress full of things that bounce around his head because of them. His files. Aizawa stops, and shock and disgust fade to anger. His school records are falsified by your old teachers. Are they? Not surprising. Instantly, he's exhausted. If it not for being just the two of them, he'd think Recovery Girl had only just healed him. It doesn't help that there seems to be a new fire lit in his teacher's eyes. Everything we thought about you two is wrong. Well, we knew his past records didn't hold up well with his current attitude, but he had been the victim of a villain attack. Yeah, the one I saved him from. Did the news care that a second child was involved? Nope. Literally went through the exact same thing he did, and everyone just forgot. Even my mom spent 2 hours on the phone with Auntie asking if he was okay. Nothing ever seemed fair. Okay. I need to talk to Bakugo. Disappointed. Settled in his bones, and his teacher must have noticed by his face. Don't worry, that isn't close to the extent of his punishment. For today, or for the rest. The rest. Aizawa looks downright murderous when he says the rest. It's not all on him, he offers gently. Like I said, everyone is the same, they all agree. I don't, he spat. I don't agree, and I think if they knew the extent of how he hurt you, neither would they. It shouldn't matter how much it hurts. Nobody deserves to be talked to the way Bakugo talks to me. Again, there's pain in Aizawa's eyes. You really were more hurt by his words than those scars. Plenty of people talk smack, kid. That won't change. Izuku's heart drops. I know. Choosing to ignore anything else he has to say, Izuku lays back on the bed and hides under his arms. I'm sorry we didn't ever stop him, Aizawa told him softly just before he left. It still stung, but maybe not in a bad way. Sorry doesn't feel like enough anymore, he whispered to the empty room. This concludes Izuku Against the Teachers. Again, this is part 1 of this series, so I'll be back with the second part for you guys as well. I hope you all enjoyed this one, and as always, thank you so much for listening.